Herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe SC-Talk und es wird jetzt schon langsam zur Angewohnheit, wenn ich herüben bin oder wenn ich in Doug Ramshaw sehe, dann mache ich mit ihm ein Interview. Es geht um Minera Alamos. Die Company war letztes Jahr, I think the first interview was in May. May, June?
May, June.
War einer meiner Top-Favoriten, oder es hat nur zwei gegeben, weil mir die Aktie extrem gut gefallen hat. Die Aktie hat seitdem gut 150%, 180% zugelegt. Und was aber ganz wichtig ist, sie hat letzte Woche auch den Aufbau ihrer Produktion bekannt gegeben, also den Start, des Produktionsaufbau. Und ja, das sind wichtige News und der Tag wird uns jetzt einfach mal selber erzählen, was sie seit November, dem letzten Interview auf der Edelmetallmasse getan hat. Doug, thank you to your time. I says, since it's now common sense, always when we meet us, or when you're maybe in Europe or I'm here, we meet us and make an update on your company, then I really be a strong believer in the stock. It was one of the two stocks I really like when I was at the first time.
I remember you saying.
You do a great job, close to, I don't know what's the share price is today, but it's still 150%, 180% since the first time when you met us. And now, last week you're coming up with big news.
Yes.
But fill us in what's happened since November.
Absolutely. Well, we always had the plan to build this mine and it was going to be low cost. We still needed to show the market where we were going to get that money from. So early December we announced a construction funding package backed by Cisco Gold royalties. It was part royalty, part equity. It was the third straight financing we did that was straight share, no warrant. I think that says a lot about the strength of a company that we can get no straight share terms. And the equity placement they did pushed their equity interest to 18%, and the rest was some royalty money. So that was huge because we were going to come into this year with making this transition from developer to producer, to graduate out of the developer peer group and become into a much more exclusive club of gold producers, and in our case, hopefully, a profitable one, whatever the gold price may be. So yes, last week we announced that construction had commenced at the Santana project. It's a 6 to 8 month kind of build. It basically means that Q4 this year we join the ranks of gold producers. Yes.
Okay. What are the key numbers for this project? So cash cost, all-in cost, so that people can calculate it a little bit?
Sure. Everything about our project scales. So we're actually going to start out at about 25 to 30,000 ounces a year. I think we'll see that rapidly push up to 45, 50 in year 2. During startup, your costs are always a little off, so we're forecasting probably around 900 US all-in sustaining cost in its first year of operations, moving down as we scale up and you get over those initial startup costs to something more in line with 800 or high 7s from on a go-forward basis. So whilst we're in a $1,500 gold market right now, my belief was always we'll model everything at $1,250. If we're lucky enough to get $1,600 gold, that extra $250, $350 an ounce should be met on the bottom line. Our business model is not predicated on needing the gold prices we're seeing right now. We'll certainly take them though.
Yeah. So that's really robust numbers. So you will see a good cash flow out of it. But this is only the start.
Yeah.
So what are the next projects that you are planning?
So our original goal when we looked at this was to build out 150,000 ounce a year production profile over 3 years. And we thought it would need 3 projects to do that. And we had a couple of them in Santana and Fortuna, and we continued to look at other opportunities out there that would make sense to add to our pipeline of development projects. Our understanding of Santana now has changed a lot in terms of the upside potential there, and whilst some of that needs to be proven out with a drill rig, Conceptually, I think we can get to that 150,000 ounces a year just with the existing projects we have. A series of expansions at Santana, coupled with bringing Fortuna on, our second mine, maybe in year 2. We'll make a construction decision on that towards the end of this year. And the only thing that would change, as I'm a big believer in doing what I say I'm going to do, Fortuna, it may slip back on the development pipeline only if we find something else that can, supplant it, that can be better for us in the shorter term to bring on stream before it. But we want to grow to 150,000 ounces, and then want to see how we can grow further than that, build a real growth gold producer that's focusing on the most important metric of them all, which is bottom line profitability.
So I think the second financing for the second mine should be much easier also for the expansion when you have already a production.
Yeah, that was the original goal. We get one up and running, cash flowing. It's a lot easier for us to take debt on for project number 2. You don't want to be a company that is a single asset company and you're taking debt on. If you do it at the wrong time of the cycle or there are problems, you can go belly up very quickly with too much debt load. So yes, with Santana up and running, we're fine with taking debt on to build Fortuna. So the foundational dilution has taken place to get us to this point. We are building now a sustainable cash flow driven business, which means we're not reliant on the equity markets to raise capital. There could be, if the right M&A opportunity comes along, there could be additional money required with that, but we view it, anything as it has to be accretive to our existing shareholders and our existing company. As we ourselves are our shareholders, we're not looking to dilute ourselves or any other shareholder that we may have in the company. But we will make smart decisions where there is an opportunity to grow the company still further.
So to summarize a little bit, now you have the financing, you start now construction the first project. So that's mean in the third, fourth quarter you're starting the production. So that's mean end of the year you're a production company, not longer a development company. This help you also then to bring the other project forward by side, that this is only the first step on this project to increase the size of the project itself.
Yes.
And you're not really thinking on the equity financing round. We have this problem in June, July last year where we have a really overhang on warrants and so on. So that's really keep the stock on a certain level. And when they fixed the price, it was like the lift off. So that now financing is not really an issue, and we are safe from this standpoint. And the goal is in the next 2-3 years, 150,000 ounces gold production.
Yeah, and so it's hard to imagine with the internal cost numbers that we're looking at for that kind of production profile. I know I have lofty goals. Last year I wanted to see out the year as a 100 million market cap company, and we achieved that. I believe if we can achieve that production profile, even if we're in a 100,000, 120,000 ounces, with the cash flow that we'll be generating, my next goal is to get this company to $500 million, and then thereafter, grow it still further. A lot of today's mid-size and even biggest gold companies all started as small producers. Kinross Gold started as a 30,000 ounce a year producer. That's how we're going to start out. So from that saying from acorns grow mighty oaks. Right now we're kind of incubating a business model that can really generate spectacular growth for our company and our shareholders.
And the focus for potential acquisitions is still only Mexico or something, or?
Not entirely. I think our team has operated in Mexico for 12 years. We're very comfortable down there. Rather like you want to be a multi-asset company, I think in time you'd like to be a multi-jurisdiction company as well, but it makes sense at this stage not to spread out you can't spread yourself too thinly.
It's too complicated then to organize everything.
Yeah, I mean, I used to say we're going to walk before we run, and now I've changed to we're going to crawl before we walk. Running is what gets companies into trouble. Trying to do too much too quickly. We're going to do this with Mr. Ross Beatty, a legendary mind builder and financier, and obviously a titan of the industry. With his Equinox Gold, he set out to build a 500,000 and potentially million-ounce producer in very short order. And Ross Beatty is able to do that with the acceleration of a Tesla. The way I look at it is, we're not Ross Beatty. So our goal is to go from 0 to 150,000 ounces in 3 years, not 500 or 600,000 ounces like Ross. So we're a little bit more like a diesel engine. Not the Tesla acceleration, but when we get up and running, that diesel engine generates a lot of power. It's just a little slow off the marks, but I think that actually keeps us in check in terms of not making mistakes, and that's really important to us.
One last question to the acquisition side. Do you think I think you're always looking, so that is also a possibility that you may be coming up this year with something?
Yeah, conceivably. We look at stuff. We're looking at stuff now that we only started looking at a couple of months ago. Those kinds of things would never crystallize that quickly. There's other stuff that we've been looking at and continue to look at that we've been looking at for 1 or 2 years. Whether something like that is a workable deal, it's got to make sense for us as a company. The evaluation process is a long one, because we don't want to make mistakes with it, and we pride ourselves on the execution. So the last thing I want to do is do a deal where we fail on the execution of that deal, because that will reflect on our other assets and the company. So we're all about not making mistakes.
Doug, thank you for the update.
Thanks, Joe.
Ja. Jetzt haben wir eine Konstruktionsentscheidung da. Das war meines Erachtens der größte oder schwierigste Teil. Denn die erste Produktion hochzuziehen, hängt halt einfach davon ab, dass man die Finanzierung stemmen kann. Und man muss ehrlicherweise sagen, und deswegen hat mir die Company auch gut gefallen, und muss ehrlicherweise auch sagen, ich habe das Vertrauen auch in ihm gehabt, und er kommt auch aus einer sehr guten Gruppe raus, dass er das tatsächlich auch schaffen kann. Denn viele sagen, sie wollen in Konstruktion gehen, aber wenige schaffen es noch. So, er hat jetzt innerhalb kürzester Zeit den Aktienkurs ziemlich hochgehoben, er hat eine Finanzierung aufgestellt und er hat jetzt die Konstruktionsentscheidung gemacht und am Ende des Jahres wieder anfangen zu produzieren. Es war nur klein, 25.000, 30.000 Unzen, aber das ist ja nur der erste Schritt. Er glaubt, dass er mit der Mine und mit seiner zweiten Mine, mit dem zweiten Projekt, was sie haben, 150.000 Unzen alleine schaffen werden können in den nächsten 2 bis 3 Jahren. Und da kommen wir gleich zu dem interessanten Punkt. Er hat in einem der Interviews gesagt, er möchte bis 100 Millionen Bewertung sein. Das hat er geschafft. Er glaubt allerdings auch, dass in den nächsten 2-3 Jahren, wenn er diese 150.000 oder 100 bis 120 auch schafft, sobald er über 100 ist, kann er eine Bewertung haben von 1,5 Milliarde. Und er traut sich das zu, dass er genau das erreicht. Und das hängt nur daran an, dass sie ihren Plan exekutieren können. Und das Schwierigste war jetzt einmal die erste Mine in Produktion zu kriegen. Denn danach, sobald der Cashflow da ist, tun sie sich leichter mit Debt-Finanzierung oder mit Verschuldung Kredit aufzunehmen, denn vorher kriegt er quasi keines. Und genau deswegen kann da jetzt natürlich diese Beschleunigung kommen. Er hat selber gesagt, sie sind eher wie ein Dieselmotor, der ist in der Beschleunigung am Anfang nicht so gut, außer hat einen Turbo drauf. Dann dafür allerdings, wenn es dann später rausgeht, hat er extrem viel Power, die er rausziehen kann. Und genau das ist eine ganz spannende Sache, deswegen gefällt mir die Aktie recht gut. Bin gespannt, was jetzt in den nächsten 2, 3, 4 Monaten ist. Für alle, die diesen ersten Lift versäumt haben, könnte jetzt dann passieren in dieser Konstruktionsphase, dass die Aktie zurückkommt, weil die Leute warten auf irgendwelche News, die können aber nicht produziert werden, weil es die ja noch in Konstruktionsphase sind. Man kann zwar schöne Bilder bringen, aber das reizt den Markt noch nicht. Und da könnte nochmal eine schöne Buying Opportunity rauskommen. Und wenn er sein Ziel natürlich erreichen kann mit 1,5 Milliarde, da haben wir da sozusagen einen Fünfbäcker vor uns, der auch schaut, will relativ wenig Eigenkapitalfinanzierung zu machen. Die letzte Finanzierung, was er gemacht hat, war ohne Warrants, denn sie haben letztes Jahr ein Warrants-Issue gehabt, da waren zu viele Warrants draußen und der Markt hat das einfach bewertet, die Aktie ist gestanden wie ein Bock, es hat sich nicht bewegt. Erst wie die Warrens weg waren, ist dann die Aktie nach oben gezogen. Das war's von Minera Alamos im Jänner 2020, Tag Ramshaw, Vancouver. Tschüss und Baba.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Appreciate it.